Yeah, Frank. Frank?
Joe, I'm trying to log in here and I get myself on the camera and I'm logged into some meeting, but there's nobody there. So either I'm doing something wrong.
Okay, let me tell Jill to send you the link again.
We
Yeah.
can hear you both.
Please do.
Oh, okay. All right. Sorry.
Thank you.
Jill, that was Frank Weber saying that he can't get into the meeting. He may have the wrong link.
Okie dokie.
You may be looking at last week's link. Or,
It's all the same.
is it?
Yeah.
And we're good on YouTube. I just verified it.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at last week's link. Or,
It's all the same.
is it?
Yeah. Okay, here we go. All right, I'm closing YouTube. And then we will get the we'll get the meeting started. Let me just send Frank the link again.
And we're good on YouTube. I just verified.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at last week's link.
Okay. All right. All right, I'm going to send this to Frank, and then we'll start the meeting.
Teresa's still showing in the attendees also.
I'm sorry? Yes, I'm going to get her over. Just give me a minute. 1 second. Message. I told you everything's moving really slow here. All right, to Frank. All right, I'm sending it to Frank. All right. Okay. Let's get this meeting started. Okay. Okay, are we ready? Let's call the meeting to order. Pursuant to New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act, NJSA 10-4-10, adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by advertising such notice in the Home News Tribune, the Asbury Park Press, the board office, the schools, and on Cablevision Channel 118 and Verizon Fios Channel 24, and by filing such notice with the Township Clerk. This meeting was scheduled for Tuesday, February 16th, 2021. The board will take formal action on payment of bills and other agenda items. Mr. Mara?
Thank you, Mr. Carroll. The Old Bridge Township Board of Education acknowledges that the law of this state establishes that members of the public, including members of the board, have the right to record public board meetings using audio or video recording devices, provided that that act of recording does not interfere with the business of this public board meeting. Therefore, the board makes it known that any such recording is to be considered the private recording of the individual and in no manner represents the official record of this board. The board therefore takes no responsibility for such private recording and completely disavows any future use.
Okay, can I have a roll call, Mr. Mara?
Ms. Burns,
Here.
Ms. Callie,
Here.
Mr. DePrima,
Here.
Mr. Dunn,
Here.
Ms. Ellis Foster,
Here.
Mr. Giordano,
Here.
Mr. Solikowski,
Here.
Mr. Weber, Mr. Carroll,
Here. I'm sure Mr. Weber will be here at some point. I resent him the link.
okay.
Okay, so I'd like us all to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I'm going to, like I did it'll be like a February theme. I'm going to play our sophomore girls doing the pledge for us, okay? Let me just get it over. It doesn't want to go now. Hold on. Sorry. There we go. Sorry about that. Oh, all right. Never mind. I can't do it. Let's all just stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag to the United States of America and to the republic
for which it stands,
one
one nation,
Under
God,
indivisible, with liberty and
and
justice
justice
for all.
for all.
Thank you. Sorry about that. It didn't want to go to my other screen. Anyway, all right. Who do we have reading the Code of Ethics?
This is Callie.
Okay.
Me?
Yep.
Oh, okay. Code of Ethics corner highlight of the month. The board member will make decisions in terms of the educational welfare of children and seek to develop and maintain public schools that meet the individual needs of all children, regardless of their ability, race, creed, sex, or social standing.
Thank you. Okay, we have our district goals and our board goals. And okay, I need a motion for the approval of the minutes, item number 1.
I'll move it.
Thank you. Can I have a second?
I'll second. And also I do, Mr. Carroll, I do see Mr. Weber in the participants. I don't know if you wanted to
Okay.
phone in. Thank you.
Did I get a second?
You did.
Okay. Any discussion? And Mr. Mara, can I have a roll call, please?
Ms. Callie,
Yes.
Mr. DePrima,
Yes.
Mr. Dunn,
Yes.
Ms. Ellis Foster,
Yes.
Mr. Giordano,
Yes.
Mr. Silikowski,
Yes.
Mr. Weber, Mr. Weber, Ms. Burns,
Yes.
Mr. Carroll,
Yes.
resolution 1 passes.
Thank you. I made him a panelist. I don't know what happened. Let me just check one more time.
He's showing now.
I'm
Okay.
here.
Okay, he's
Yeah,
here.
I felt like I was in a penalty box.
I'm sorry, Frank. Okay, now we move on to the report of our student representative. Is Dan here? Hi, Dan.
Hi, I'm here. Yes,
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
Okay. Hi, everybody. As you may know, my name is Daniel Rita, and I'm the Old Bridge High School 2020 to 2021 school president. Staying strong through this virtual year, we have been making the most of what we can and just every day reminding ourselves that we are going to get through this. We're on the home stretch. We're almost done, hopefully. Just a reminder that we are always here for everyone if anyone ever needs anything at all. The 7 subcommittees that were recently created by Senate have come up with countless ideas to be implemented in the upcoming school year, with some including master classes for students, whether that be cooking or acting or anything like that. Show Your Face February, which is to just get more students with cameras on while remote, and many more. Senate is working every day to turn these ideas into reality. Currently, members of the Old Bridge community, in conjunction with Senate, are sponsoring a coat drive. The drive began on February 10th and will be going up until the end of February, with just a main goal of donating as many coats as possible. We already have such a great amount of donations, actually 6 bags worth, and we hope to get as many more. Anyone can donate, and there is a box for donations as soon as you walk into the high school. The more coats, the better. Jars for Bryce are still out at multiple stores around Old Bridge, so just make sure to keep a checkout for whenever you might be out shopping. Since last time, the jars have collected a new total of $3,500, so that's really nice. And just a quick special thank you to all the local businesses who are still continue to leave the jars out. It's much appreciated. The Senate board has continued to meet virtually weekly in order to keep coming up with new events and activities to bring us together while we're apart. You can keep up with all the new and exciting events by following us on Twitter at SenateOB. And as always, you got this, Old Bridge, and we got you.
Thank you so much, Dan.
Of course.
Okay, superintendent's report, Mr. Cittadino.
Thank you, Madam President. There'll be 2 components of the superintendent's report. Tonight we have a superintendent's report and a progress towards goals. I've asked our supervisor of social studies and secondary language arts to join us tonight, Mr. Rocco Solentano, and he will be putting together for us or demonstrating for us and walking us through some of the curriculum, some of the exercises, some of the work that the students have been centered around during our Black History Month for 2021. Obviously, everyone knows that February is Black History Month, and it's something that we study deeply in our schools and make part of our curriculum, especially during this month. So, Mr. Solentano.
Good evening, everyone. It's good to see all of you, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to show you how we are celebrating Black History Month in our schools. Hoping we can get there it is. I'm starting off with a quote from Scott Mazzella. He's one of our teachers from Jonas Salk Middle School, and he said this to me the other day, and I think it best describes our approach to Black History Month. It's a time for our students to further recognize and celebrate the contributions of African Americans that they have made to our society and our culture. So if we go to the next slide, I have control of that.
Hold on. Oh, there we go. Okay.
Okay.
Is that the right one, or did I go too
assist
far?
No, you're good.
Okay.
So to assist us in teaching and celebrating Black History Month, we've recently acquired digital platforms that we use along with resources that we've traditionally used. This is Nearpod, and it's a platform especially popular with our middle school social studies teachers. It allows you to make engaging and interactive lessons. Teachers and students can create videos, upload documents and information. And if you take a look, the example here is from a 7th grade social studies lesson on Gullah culture. The students here wrote responses on what they learned and placed them on the screen. We also, you can see there like what they thought about the lesson and things that surprised them and so on. If we go to the next click, you'll see this is Newsella. And what we use with Newsella for, it's an informational text platform that utilizes thousands of articles that can be automatically personalized to a student's reading level. It's carefully curated and organized in a way to help teachers find exactly what they're looking for. And they have created a great amount of resources for Black History Month and also provide lesson ideas and writing prompts. And we use these resources at all levels from elementary all the way up to high school. So next slide, I want to talk a little bit about how we're celebrating Black History Month in our elementary schools. And teachers have done several things. They've used books and videos along with digital articles from Newsella and Scholastic to learn about famous African Americans and events. Students have begun working on projects and making presentations in class using PowerPoint and Flipgrid. The teachers I spoke with are working on these projects right now, and the students will be making their presentations towards the end of the month. So the next slide, this is an example of what a teacher is. It's a great example of a teacher who's a third grade teacher, Miss Sarah Sandler. She's at Madison Park. And what she did, she created this as a Google slide. And what you can do is students can actually click on any of these pictures here, and it will open up different resources and things that students can get a chance to look at. So this one, the subject is Ruby Bridges. And if you were to click on one of these pictures, you would see like a storybook where it would have a read aloud. There were some things about her biography. There are videos and so on. It really is a nice little interactive thing that the students can be allowed to explore and to look at, and then come back together and have discussions about. So on the next slide, Miss Sandler actually uses this as well. And these are all storybooks that children can actually look on, click and read, or have the book read to them, dealing with Martin Luther King, and basically just his life and things that have gone on and his impact on Black history. So next slide. At the end, the way they round these things up is, and Ms. Sandler in this case actually used Microsoft Teams and Forms to assess and receive feedback from their students after they finished the lessons. So this is just a little example of that, where she's asking them what they enjoyed the most and what they thought about it. Okay, moving on to middle school. Our middle schools are celebrating Black History Month, both inside and outside the classroom. English language arts classes are reading and learning about African-American authors and poets such as Alice Walker and Tupac Shakur. Our social studies classes are spotlighting major African-American historical figures. In both courses, they are currently working on projects where they're going to research people and events. At Salk and Sandburg, the guidance departments have been very active in celebrating Black History Month. Salk's guidance department actually is having a poetry contest right now. Poems are due in by Friday. And basically they're drawing inspiration from Amanda Gorman's speech and poem, I should say, that she gave at this year's inauguration. Sandburg's guidance department has created a list of activities such as Days of Dialogue, which is celebrating our diversity and having conversations about race and the situations today. They also scheduled virtual assemblies with guest speakers. And actually the first assembly is going to be this week with Janita Bellamy. She's from BET Entertainment. And then we're going to have, I believe later, in another week, 2 weeks, Eric Scott Strandroff is going to speak to the students in a virtual assembly. So in the next slide, it's another one of these Google slides that the guidance department made. And they reached out to me and asked me to speak to all the English language arts and social studies classes at Sandburg. And this slide, there are all, once again, if you click on any of these, it will open up a link to a lesson or to a video. And these resources are going to be used once a week in our history classes and in our English language arts classes. And again, they're interactive. They create a dialogue. They create a way for us to really, in a good way, to talk about issues that are going on, but also to observe Black History Month and the accomplishments of African Americans in this country. Okay, one last slide from the middle school here. This is a screenshot from a project that was done by Mrs. Arico's 6th grade social studies class. In the lesson, they learned about the importance of Martin Luther King's "I Have a Dream" speech and the impact it had on inspiring social change. So what students did, they used that as inspiration to address the issues of today. So it is more than just learning what he said, but actually applying it to the world around them.
Next.
So for the high school, like all of our other levels, we're doing a lot of projects that are focusing on Black History Month. There are a few examples here. Again, these are from lessons that are being done and projects that are going to be due later in the month. So this one is from Mr. Post's US 1 class, where they looked at the civil rights movement and took an in-depth study. If you click on the next slide, you'll see that even our world history classes in the grade 9 center are doing things that are focusing, even though it's a world history thing, we're still, we actually redid our social studies curriculum this summer to make sure that we include the history of Africa in our world history. And you can see that for this month, this is the project that they're doing, where they are basically researching and looking at African kingdoms and their impact on global history. And then lastly, even in our civics classes, we're taking the time this month to really begin to dive into some of the other cases and other things that deal with civil rights. This is Mr. Magnuson. He's a teacher at grade 9 and he teaches civics. And basically this was a video and questions and a follow-up discussion on Loving versus Virginia. Okay. And with that, I also want to remind you that this is the first year we've had our Conscience of Humanity course that was once called the Conscience of Man. It's been updated to today. The course was needed an update, and we designed it with the idea to study issues of and the history of inequality, prejudice, and genocide. They're doing a series of projects for Black History Month. And this one you see here is one that they just completed, where students completed artwork inspired by the Harlem Renaissance, and they applied it to issues of today. So if you look at some of these, like particularly, you can see the one that says they don't care about us is about the civil rights movements that occurred, or the marches that occurred in the summer. And you can see the people in the background. They have masks on. And so they created Flipgrid videos to actually explain what each of their pictures look like. The same thing with the issues hidden within the skyscrapers. So they really went on and explained. They go on not just producing something, but actually creating a video to talk about it. Okay. And then our next slide, these here, the class is the Conscience of Humanity is planning to have an impact outside of the classroom and really getting out there into the community. And these are student examples of a project that they just completed. It was where they created a Black history researched a Black history topic that could be taught to middle school or elementary school students. And these are just some slides from some of the PowerPoints from some of the students who completed the project. The idea is, and our hope is that, when things return to normal, that this course is going to serve our town in a similar way to the peer program, where we be able to do outreaches to the community and outreaches to the middle school and elementary schools. Okay. And finally, I got to talk to you about the nightly wrap up. If you haven't seen it, I urge you to take a look at it. This week's past episode highlighted Black History Month. And they teamed up with the African American Club to do a trivia challenge on famous African Americans. They also included poetry from students Emmanuel Boating and Zaire Boykins. It was just a great episode. It was really nice to spotlight it. And I think this really, is a good way to sum it up, that we're just constantly, for this month for Black History Month, we are taking the time to shine the spotlight and celebrate Black history. We're going to be doing the same thing next month when it's Women's History Month as well. So if you have any questions or anything like that, you can please let me know. You can always contact me. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was awesome.
All right. Well, thank you very much for that, Mr. Solentano. Very well done. And please thank all of the teachers and students who took part in providing that data to you. So the next is our progress towards goals. And obviously public relations is always part of our goals and better outreach to our community. I'm going to turn it over now to Dr. Hoker, who's going to lead us through a presentation on what's been going on in our schools as of late.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I would say I'm doing a little less leading and you'll be doing a little bit more watching, but just to share with you, in an effort to share and celebrate the hard work of our students and staff, it was a collaborative effort to put this video together, highlighting the events and programs and the awesome things that are going on in our district, particularly in January and February. This video highlights all of the events and the special activities, many of the things that we've done to try to promote the connectivity and the positivity throughout the district. And hopefully this gives you insight, our parents and our community, into what's going on in our classrooms. Ms. DeCaro, can you go ahead and start that video?
Sure thing.
There should be sound there in the background.
I can't, it won't go any higher. It's at max.
Okay.
It was louder earlier, so I don't know what happened. I could sing.
I could go through and tell you, but I think it will move too fast for me to keep up with it. But as we will post this on the website, and what you'll be able to see is I'll just highlight a couple of the things that are in here. So when you have the opportunity to go back and take a look again, maybe you can just replay it from the beginning.
Sure.
Because it is quick.
1 second.
I'll let you start that over.
All right. Yeah, I don't know.
I'll see how fast I can speak. So we do have 4
Here, I'll
schools
stop it
that
for
were
you.
recognized again as state schools of character and are moving forward with the national recognition. So they'll be completing that process in the next couple of months. These are some highlights from videos that they needed to submit. Last week during Wellness Wednesday, we had 70 of our teachers meet with over 1,000 students to go over the elective options that are offered in our high schools. And we have some slides there from, I know one of them is auto. We have our We Are One, the initiative through SEPTA, trying to bring our district together. Different opportunities. We had peer meet with our younger students, our 100 days of school. Again, Wellness Wednesdays, we've had multiple challenges, different teachers reaching out to different students and staying connected. We had Minute to Win It. We have Cooking with Miss Cleo tomorrow at 4 p.m. if you haven't already signed up. And this month, we have our Youth Art Month Challenge. This is out on our website, various opportunities to participate in the arts. And that actually goes through March 15th. And one of the suggestions was having our teachers read to students. We have a teacher up in the top corner here that was reading on Flipgrid. We had teachers visiting students, and even a teacher who promised if the students turned their cameras on, she would dye her hair blue, and she did. The kindness challenges going on throughout the district. We've seen them all over Twitter. Our Red Cross Club, elementary students. I think we have some superheroes there in the elementary school. And then various Valentines, our students showing their gratitude, sharing with their teachers, wishing them a Valentine's, and just general being grateful. And then the parent workshops. We have a workshop tomorrow evening on Wellness Wednesdays. We're even bringing our parents into it. Various parent university workshops, student motivation, and those workshops will continue throughout the year. We will post this on the website. It sounds much better with the music in the background. Sorry about that.
It's very nice, lovely, very upbeat music. I can hear it. All right, very good. Thank you so much, Dr. Hoker.
Okay.
Oops, I don't want it to start again. Okay, do we have anything else, Mr. Cittadino?
At this point, that concludes the superintendent's report and our progress towards goals.
Very good. Thank you very much. Mr. Mara, any correspondence?
No correspondence.
Okay, do we have any special committee reports? Anybody? Let me get that screen up again. There we go. Okay, no special, yeah, I'm trying to think. We didn't have any. Okay, moving right along. Okay, so now we're going to go to the hearing of the residents on agenda items only. Okay, remember there's a time at the end of the meeting to speak on any district item. Okay, so this is the hearing of the residents on agenda items only. So if you can raise your hand, let me put up that screen. 1 second. There we go. Okay, so if you can raise your hand, and I will call on you, and I will ask you to unmute yourself. All right, so right now I have Mr. O'Neill, and you can unmute yourself and you can speak.
Hello, this is Tim O'Neill, the president of the Old Bridge Education Association. I want to talk about item number 2 under section 27 on page 16. This is the board's resolution supporting basically making the vaccine available to teachers as soon as possible. I wanted to thank the Board of Ed for their support in this resolution. Similarly, I wanted to thank Mr. Cittadino and the administrative team for working to make the vaccine available as soon as possible. As pretty much everyone knows, we began our return to in-person instruction today. Many of my members returning to the buildings would have been a lot more comfortable returning with the vaccine. But there are a lot of ways that we would like our return to be different, but we're returning nonetheless. I want to point out that the leaves being approved tonight show virtually no connection between our return to in-person instruction and the leave requests amongst educators in this district. And I want to make this point to contradict some false narratives that have been pushed by certain members of the community that the closing of the buildings was or is due to educators refusing to return. We showed up in the fall. We've been there for our students all year, and we are again answering the call as we return to the buildings once again. As we did in the fall, we're putting our faith in the board and administration to create a safe environment and support us throughout the process. And to that end, we greatly appreciate the gesture of this resolution and the continued support of the board and administration. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. O'Neill. Okay, I'm seeing no other hands raised right now, so I'm going.
Mr. Carroll,
Yes,
this is
sir.
Joe Mara. We did receive an email today directed to the board secretary that's part of the hearing of the residents, which I will read. It's from a Miss Rose Merciel of 20 Gramercy Road in Old Bridge. The subject of the email is school opening plans. And this is a quote, Mr. Cittadino and the Board of Ed. I am a parent of 3 children enrolled in the Old Bridge Public Schools, and I preschool age child that will be entering kindergarten next school year. I will start by saying that my children are fortunate in that they have had amazing teachers throughout this, and mother myself who has a flexible work schedule that has been dramatically reduced due to this prolonged school closure. My children's education and well-being is of utmost importance to me. Even though they are doing well in what is supposed to be a temporary situation, this is not how children are meant to learn and be for such a prolonged period of time. I am an educator myself, I am a speech pathologist, currently working with preschool age children in their school in New York. That has been open 5 full days since September. I additionally have worked with them virtually. Nothing compares to teaching my students in person. I have seen the struggles of these students and the anguish in their parents' faces on the other side of the screen. My heart is broken for them and the many parents I hear call into these Board of Ed meetings. More has to be done and articulated to us as far as for the true path and plans ahead on fully opening these schools. I am not understanding why we are not starting this phase back by combining cohorts. You had enough time to make that decision and have it effectively implemented. According to your data, 1/2 of the student population will be returning. Why should our children be sitting with 4 to 6 other students in a class when you can safely combine that number in a classroom and give them the more days they deserve? Secondly, how do you plan on going from 2 half-days in March with 1/2 of the current student population to 5 full days with a presumed full student population back when September comes? What is the plan? I, as a working parent of 4 children, need to know. I have to make decisions now whether I will be sending my children back to the public schools of Old Bridge. I cannot and will not allow my 5-year-old to start any of her schooling virtually due to a virus that at any time will be around for more than a year and has shown within schools little transmission. All of my children deserve a routine outside their home, a school routine with proper education, socialization, and separation from their homes and parents. I hope on this you hear my message. I hope to finally hear the plans of opening these schools. Your answer or lack thereof will guide myself and many parents to either leave the public school system or stay. Thank you, Rose Marcel, 20 Gramercy Road.
Thank you, Mr. Mara. Okay, seeing no other hands raised, I'm going to now close the portion of the meeting, hearing of the residents, this portion, and we will move on. Just give me 1 second. Okay. Share. Okay. So we're going to move on to nothing in policy, curriculum, professional development, items 1 and 2. Can I have a motion, please?
I'll move it.
Okay, Ms. Ellis Foster, can I have a second?
Sally.
Callie. Okay, any discussion? Okay, roll call, Mr. Mara?
Mr. Dunn,
Mr. Dunn had to drop off the call for a bit.
okay, Ms. Ellis Foster,
Yes.
Mr. Giordano,
Yes.
Mr. Solikowski,
Yes.
Mr. Weber, Mr. Weber,
Yes.
Ms. Burns,
Yes.
Ms. Callie,
Yes.
Mr. DePrima,
Yes.
Mr. Carroll.
Yes.
Resolution 1 and 2 pass.
Okay, moving on to athletics, items number 1. Just 1 and 2. Okay, can I have a motion, please?
Burns will make the motion.
Thank you. Can I have a second?
Callie will second.
Thank you. Any discussion on athletics items 1 and 2? All right, seeing no discussion, roll call, Mr. Mara.
Miss Ellis Foster,
Yes.
Mr. Giordano,
Yes.
Mr. Silikowski,
Yes.
Mr. Weber, Mr. Weber,
Yes.
Ms. Burns,
Yes.
Ms. Callie,
Yes.
Mr. DePrima,
Yes.
Mr. Dunn,
He's
Mr. Carroll.
Yes.
Resolution 1 and 2 pass.
All right, so now moving on to finance. 1 through 6. May I have a motion, please?
I'll move it.
Ms. Ellis Foster, can I have a second?
Burns will second.
Okay, who was that?
Ms. Burns, Ms. Burns, okay.
Okay, any discussion? Seeing no discussion,
Mr. Giordano,
Yes.
Mr. Silikowski,
Yes.
Mr. Weber,
Yes.
Ms. Burns,
Yes.
Ms. Callie,
Yes.
Mr. DePrima,
Yes.
Ms. Ellis Foster,
Yes.
and Mr. Carroll.
yes.
Resolutions 1 through 6 pass.
Okay, great. Nothing in non-certificated personnel office or operational. Now we have non-certificated personnel other. May I have a motion to move items 1 through 5?
Callie will move.
Okay, can I have a second?
Weber, second.
Thank you, Mr. Weber. Any discussion?
I'd like to
I would-
read number 1.
Sure.
Josephine Wong, who is retiring from Sandberg as a paraprofessional, age 16 and a half years, effective March 1st in 2021, and thank her for her service.
Thank you, Mr. Weber. Any other discussion?
I'd like to discuss number 3. I know that summer hopefully will be here. You know, that groundhog wasn't too nice to us, but since we're already looking to hire paraprofessionals, do we have a number on how many students that we'll be expecting yet?
No, we don't have a number quite yet, Mrs. Burns. We always place this on the February agenda, anticipating that we are planning for the summer come March and April. So we can let the staff members know who need to plan for the summer what their professional responsibilities would be, or if they're interested in working for the summer. So as of right now, we don't have numbers. We're beginning to look at our ESY numbers and plan for the summer.
Okay, I just think that it would be difficult to plan how many paraprofessionals we need if we don't have that number for how many students, because of course, paras are based on the individual need of the child. So then my other question is the dates that we're looking at. Is that what we normally do for?
Yes.
Do we think that possibly COVID, we could extend those dates? I know that funding has been talked about. Is this really the appropriate time, you think, to put this in stone, or is there a way to change it in the future, hopefully?
Well, and anything could be changed on a board agenda between now and June. We are anticipating having this many paraprofessionals. Later on in the agenda, there is a certain amount of teachers that are allocated as well. We have added a number of paraprofessionals, approximately 19 to our estimated amounts, as we plan on having a relatively robust ESY going into this summer. I think we added somewhere in the ballpark of 11 or 14 teachers. I don't know the exact number off the top of my head. So we are anticipating having 4 days a week, 5 weeks, July 5th to August 5th for ESY going into next year. But obviously, anything can change on any agenda pending board approval.
So hopefully this is my last question. What kind of science and data or research and parent input was put into this, since COVID has kind of created this uncertain environment? Do you think that that maybe revamping it now would be a good time?
We revamped our ESY program 3 years ago very successfully. I would put our ESY program against anybody in the state. So right now I don't anticipate revamping it too much going into this upcoming summer.
Okay, but how much parent input or science and data was then put into this instance, considering COVID?
Again, I don't know exactly what you're asking for. In terms of parents don't necessarily dictate what our summer would look like. We do anticipate ESY is for the maintenance of skills, not necessarily for the acquisition of skills. While COVID might have been a little bit different going into this school year, and obviously changed the dynamic that we're looking at, we continue to look at all of our programs to provide the most appropriate services for our students, whether they come in today as a self-contained student or whether they're going to attend ESY come in July.
I guess what I'm asking is that I understand what ESY is for, but considering the environment that we have now, is this really the dates that were given the best for our students? Or can we look at other best practices from other districts?
Sure. As of right now, July 5th to August 5th, it would be our ESY cycle going into the summer.
And if I could just jump in too, Ms. Burns, and as you know, as a board member, this type of expansion would have to start out with looking at it through the curriculum committee, because you're really changing the delivery model which we have, and there's time to do that as we go through. We haven't even had our curriculum meeting yet, but that would be a great point to bring that up, saying, okay, so this is our ESY program, that is our starting point, and Dr. Tui is revamping that starting point. I think even adding some hours, adding personnel to it because of the number of students we believe that we'll need to service, but changing the format of it would have to go through the curriculum committee to make it like a 5-day and so forth. So that would be the starting point for that. And then we could adopt it in later ones. There's also the information that the White House is pledging $54 billion towards school districts and COVID relief that we would be able to use if we had received it at that time. And from what I understand, we would be receiving it for the 21-22 school year, which this ESY falls under. And in that package is compensatory education money for offsetting just kind of what you're talking about. But sometimes you don't want to put the cart before the horse and you start allocating the money. And then when you need to show that you have a need for it, they show that you've already budgeted for it, so you don't have a need for it in a grant type situation.
Okay, I know how valuable our paras are, so I do support this. I just want to make sure that those dates that we have are, workable. So, all right, thank you so much for clarifying.
Okay, does anybody else have any other questions or discussion? No. I also want to, congratulate Josephine Wong on her retirement. I actually worked with, she's a friend of mine. Our kids are actually best friends. And we worked together, ironically, when I was a para in Southwood. So she's an awesome para, and Old Bridge is gonna miss her. And but I wish her the best. So seeing no other discussion, roll call, Mr. Mara.
Ms. Burns,
Yes.
Ms. Callie,
Yes.
Mr. DePrima,
Yes.
Ms. Ellis Foster,
Yes.
Mr. Giordano,
Yes.
Mr. Solikowski,
Yes.
Mr. Weber,
Yes.
Mr. Carroll,
Yes.
resolutions 1 through 5 pass.
Okay, so certificated personnel. I need a motion for items 1 through, where are we?
15.
1 through 15, thank you. 1 through 15, can I have a motion?
Mrs. DeCaro, there's an addendum here for number 4.
Okay,
No, it's an administrative correction, not an addendum.
Okay.
Sorry.
okay.
So do we need a motion? We didn't get any motions yet.
Okay, yeah. Can I have a motion, please?
Callie will move.
Callie, can I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, and discussion?
Okay, there were two administrative corrections. Item number 4 on page 10, attachment D1. I believe the timeline was extended for that individual. And the same thing with item number 5. There was a change in item B. The timeline was changed for that long-term sub.
That is correct.
Okay. All right. Sorry. Okay. Any other discussion? Okay. Roll call, Mr. Mayor?
Ms. Callie,
Yes.
Mr. DePrima,
Yes.
Ms. Ellis Foster,
Yes.
Mr. Giordano,
Yes.
Mr. Solikowski,
Yes.
Mr. Weber,
Yes.
Ms. Burns,
Yes.
Mr. Carroll.
Yes.
Resolutions 1 through 15 pass.
Okay. Non-certificated personnel transportation, item number 1.
I'll move it.
Thank you. Can I have a second?
Callie will second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All right. Can I have a roll call, Mr. Mayor?
Mr. DePrima,
Yes.
Ms. Ellis Foster,
Yes.
Mr. Giordano,
Yes.
Mr. Solikowski,
Yes.
Mr. Weber,
Yes.
Ms. Burns,
Yes.
Ms. Callie,
Yes.
Mr. Carroll.
Yes.
Resolution 1 passes.
Supplies, equipment, and services, items 1 and 2. Can I have a motion, please?
I'll move it.
Mr. Weber, can I have a second?
Burns will second.
Ms. Burns, thank you. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, can I have a roll call, Mr. Mara?
Ms. Ellis Foster,
Yes.
Mr. Giordano,
Yes.
Mr. Solikowski,
Yes.
Mr. Weber,
Yes.
Ms. Burns,
Yes.
Ms. Callie,
Yes.
Mr. DePrima,
Yes.
Mr. Carroll.
Yes.
Resolutions 1 and 2 pass.
Okay, nothing under transportation. We have miscellaneous items 1 through 6. Can I have a motion, please?
I'll move it.
Ms. Ellis Foster, can I have a second?
Callie will second.
Thank you, Ms. Callie. Any discussion? Miscellaneous items 1 through 6.
Mr. Carr, I just, if I can, I just want to point out, I noticed on number 6 for some of our student teachers are actually a few alumni whose name I recognize. So I think it is just an amazing thing that our alumni want to come back and do this. And we know that we have quite a few of our teachers who are alumni. So it's just a wonderful thing to see that kind of a tradition continue. So, and a testament, I think, to the district that people want to come back and be a part of it as an educator.
Definitely. I agree. It's wonderful. Any other discussion? Okay, Mr. Mara, roll call.
Mr. Giordano,
Yes.
Mr. Solikowski,
Yes.
Mr. Weber,
Yes.
Ms. Burns,
Yes.
Ms. Callie, Ms. Callie,
Yes.
Mr. DePrima,
Yes.
Ms. Alice Foster,
Yes.
Mr. Carroll.
Yes.
Resolutions 1 through 6 pass.
Okay, we have board secretary and business. Item 1 and 2. Can I have a motion?
Weber will move it.
Can I have a second, please?
Burns will second.
Okay. Any discussion?
Yes.
Mr. Giordano.
Okay, so for resolution 1, I would like to thank all of the board members and Mr. Parton for discussing this proposed bill in the General Assembly and hopefully getting the thing that I would want out of it passed, that we could be able to transfer funds to general fund expenses and not feel compelled to spend money on certain capital projects. So I'd like to thank everyone for that. And for resolution 2, with the vaccinations for the teachers, once again, I'm glad that this was brought forward and hopefully the teachers could get the vaccinations. Right now, there's about 1 million, according to the governor's Twitter. So that's roughly about a ninth, so 11%, plus the people in New Jersey that are 18 and younger, the students, which make up about 21% of the New Jersey population. So in total, you have about, sorry, what? Sorry. So about a third of New Jersey is basically safe. They'll either have the vaccination or they won't have the need for the vaccination that much. So hopefully this will bring us forward to our real normal, not the new normal, and we could get our kids back to 5-day education by September. And thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Giordano. Does anybody else have any discussion on items 1 or 2? No? Okay. I just have one question. It might have been answered last week, but I don't remember. For item number 1, is this legislation simply during the years that we have state aid cuts, or is this is only during the state aid cuts? Like once our cuts are over in the next year or 2, this no longer will apply. Is that correct?
The way it's phrased right now is it pertains to any year in which the state aid is lower than it was in the previous year. So I think there's intended to be some flexibility there. Certainly right now, it would apply to S2 districts through the 24-25 school year. But in the future, if something else exciting happens to people's budgets, if this legislation were passed like this, it would
change it. We have to get rid of that.
You gotta get him back here. You charge him that money, you gotta fix that.
it would also take effect.
Okay.
Ms. DeCarroll?
Yes.
On item number 2, I fully support it. But just to make you aware of it, 26 states in the country, as of the last count, have already changed their teachers' rankings and moved them up to the 1B category, including our neighboring states of New York, Pennsylvania, and Delaware, the 3 states that we border on. And I have not been able to find it, but I would hope that the NJEA has also taken similar action, because obviously We all want the teachers to be vaccinated, and I hope that they have also put in some requests to the governor.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Weber. Would anyone else, anybody, Ms. Kelly?
I just wanted to say one thing to Mr. Giordano's comments. I have read a lot of things on social media that there are many 16, 17, 18-year-olds who are immune compromised, who would, like to get the vaccine. So they're not necessarily should be lumped in with the people who are safe. They're just have no vaccines that have been approved for their age group. And then you have the younger population, younger than 16, who don't have a vaccine that's approved for them. They're not necessarily safe if they can't get a vaccine. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kelly. Anybody else? Okay. Seeing as no further discussion, Mr. Mara?
Mr. Silikowski? Mr. Silikowski?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Ms. Burns?
Yes.
Ms. Callie? Ms. Callie?
Yes.
Mr. DePrima?
Yes.
Ms. Ellis Foster?
Yes.
Mr. Giordano?
Yes.
Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Resolution 1 and 2 pass.
Okay, now we are on to hearing of the residents, any school district issue. Let me stop sharing this. And so if you raise your hand, I can unmute you. 1 second, I gotta share this. Okay, so, okay, Mr. O'Neill. Go ahead, you can unmute yourself.
Hello, Tim O'Neill, president of the OBEA again. I just wanted to respond to Mr. Weber. I don't speak for NJEA, but I can tell you that NJEA has sent out much information. Made it very easy for all NJEA members and anyone else to contact the governor using a system that just requires a few clicks to support teachers getting the vaccine as soon as possible. And I can say, as the president of the OBA, I have shared that information with my members, and they have also been petitioning the appropriate people. Again, thank you to the board and admin for their support in getting our members the vaccine as soon as possible.
Thank you, Mr. O'Neill. Okay, I have a phone number, last 4 digits, 8411. If you unmute yourself, well, you can, I'm sorry, press *6 to unmute. And you can speak. I see you're unmuted, so 8411, you can speak if you can. No?
Can you hear me now?
There you go. Okay, yes.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Yes, I just have a couple of comments. I mean, we've had these calls basically every other week now. Many questions have been asked regarding reopening the schools, what the plan is, and we're never seen to be given any sort of substantive answer on any of the questions that really matter. We're giving a lot of broad statistics that are all but irrelevant to the situation and don't really tell the full story of the situation of what's going on. It's really more of just seems to be the narrative that wants to be pushed by this administration. Personally, I've sent 2 emails over the past couple of weeks, one directly to Mr. Cittadino and then one to the entire board, only to get one response from Mr. DePrima, so I appreciate that. And to me, that's a clear sign, 2 emails to 10 plus people. It's a clear sign indication that the parents, the people that you essentially work for and ultimately put you in these positions that you requested, our concerns are essentially unimportant to you. Now, Mr. Cindino, I know you're appointed, but you still work for the people. And your jobs are to provide the proper education to our students and our children. So I think it's absolutely absurd that constituents essentially go unheard and never get a response back. And I think this entire situation, you guys have made this much harder on yourselves than really had to be. And, you know, a lot of the disdain from the parents that you obviously hear week after week has really been brought on by yourselves. Like, all we want is a choice for our children, whether we want to send our kids in or keep our kids home. Everybody has their own opinion, what they want to do, and I totally respect that. If you want to keep your kids home to feel safe, fine. But myself and hundreds of other parents want to send their kids in because that's the education that our kids deserve. And I mean, you see studies and statistics that prove the mental trauma that these kids have experienced over the past 10 months has been much more damaging than a virus that has a 99% survival rate, especially the younger kids, where this virus doesn't really affect them that much. Obviously, there are cases where kids have immune disorders and things like that. That I totally understand. But the 99% survival rate, where it doesn't really affect these kids, that's really what you guys should be looking at. And that's the statistics that you should be looking at. I think we need to open the schools, enough of the political BS and the fear mongering, and provide our children with the proper education that we as parents expect and that the children deserve. Thank you.
Can I just interrupt you 1 second, sir?
Sure.
Sir, can you, I didn't ask you to identify yourself before you started speaking. So if you don't mind just identifying yourself, I apologize for that.
Sure. My name's Joe B. I'm in on Morristown Road.
Thank you. Okay.
Mr. Carroll, can you repeat that last name? I'm gonna look for an email. I didn't hear the last name.
Joe Beam? I think he said Beam. Jill, did you say something?
He said Bierman.
Bierman, thank you.
Actually, I did say something while he was speaking because I was concerned about that he said that he emailed, and I went back to January and I have no parent emails. So I don't know if the other board members want to.
I don't have an email from a Bierman either.
No.
Yeah, and I answer all the emails, so if it was sent, I would have answered it.
Sal, you didn't get one either? Giordano?
No.
No, I didn't get one.
Somehow Sal DePrima got it and the rest of us didn't.
Look, I don't know when though.
All right.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh wait, Jay Beard, B-E-R-D. That was on February 8th.
Yeah, I went back to mid-January. I have nothing.
Okay.
And like I've said before, you know, if you have a question for me, especially, you know, a lot of times emails have multiple questions, and it's just, you know, give me your phone number, tell me a time to call, I'll give you a call. Because a lot of going back and forth with the emails, you don't really feel as though you get the questions, you answer. I'll give you my undivided time. You call me, I'll call you, and you know, you may not always agree with my answers, but you'll hear them.
All right. Next up, we have Mel. If you can just give us your, well, Mel, but if you can give us your last name too, and unmute yourself, and you can speak. You just have to unmute yourself. There you go.
Yes, hello?
Yes, hi.
Yes, hi. I haven't actually stayed in tune. This is Melissa Keogh. My children are in carpenter school. Well, I wish they were actually in carpenter school, and I'm actually very grateful that they'll be going back to 2 days a week. But, unfortunately for working parents and, if you're fortunate enough to have one parent stay at home, that may be feasible, but for other parents that they have other obligations, but yet they want their children to be in school, it's very unfortunate that we have to have just 4 hours a day, 2 days a week. And I'm actually juggling around my schedule, not to say me, but I'm saying other parents, and it's stressful that we have to all do this because we can only have 2 days a week. And it just doesn't make sense to me and to many others why this is brought on only 2 days. when we can fulfill furthermore, because other townships have with not having any issues within the school system. So, my children and others, they really are, they're suffering, they're traumatized, honestly. My children wake up every day very upset, crying. They don't want to go to school. They don't want to go on the computer, is what they say. It's not school. They don't want to go on the computer. And, we've dealt with it and we struggled. I've even spoken to teachers and, they're they really want to go back to the classroom, and we all do. So, we really want to push forward. And I'm grateful that we're doing the 2 days, and I'm just hoping that we can, soon push furthermore, because we've seen furthermore within the township, within private schools. And I'm just hoping that we can continue to do so. So I just, want to be able to come to a conclusion as to when that can happen. And when my children can feel feel a sense of normalcy, because if not, then honestly, I have to opt to private school. And I shouldn't feel that parents have to go to private school because we can't open public school. Like it shouldn't be that way. We shouldn't have to go to another route because this school isn't opening. That shouldn't be. We should be able to open. It's very stressful, and I'm sure all of you know, and you hear it, and you understand what we are going through, and I hope you understand. But it really is. It's a struggle for the parents, for the children. I mean, it really is, and I just hope that we can somehow move forward a little bit faster of a pace and come to better guidelines, decisions. Teachers, vaccinations, if we choose to go that route, to make it a better life for our children is the major concern.
Okay. Thank you very much, Melissa.
Thank you.
Okay, next up we have Ivis Molina. If you unmute yourself, you can speak. And if you give us your address. You just have to unmute yourself, Ivis.
Hi,
There
can
you
you hear
go.
me?
Yes. Who
Hi,
are we
good evening. How you
speaking
doing?
with?
It's, Tim Cogan,
Can you spell your last name?
Coghan.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I think it would be easier for a lot of us if when someone addresses an issue, that it just be spoken about instead of bouncing around on the screen. Did you get the email? Did you get the email? No, I didn't get the email. I didn't get it. How about address it, because there might be multiple people that have the same question, and you just answer it there instead of getting 1,000 of the same emails.
Okay. Did you have any questions or concerns or anything else, Mr.
Yeah.
Hogan,
My concern was when people address something, I'm like, okay, I want to hear what that's about, and then you say, oh, I didn't get an email. Well, no one gets any resolution. So can you guys address that when someone speaks about it?
Okay, thank you.
I'll address the one thing that's been kind of brought up as a narrative is, what's the plan going forward? The plan that was developed by the task force has been sitting on the district webpage since mid-August. And it's an expansive plan, and it talks about opening. When we started with the 1 day, then it talked about going to 2 days. And I know people say, well, this 2 day was just developed. The 2 day has been in the plan since August. And then it has plans to expand to 5 days. But all of that has to do within the parameters that allow us to do it. Now, on February 12th, the CDC, in conjunction with the White House, put out something that's been long due, and is guidelines for schools to reopen. And this was a national guidelines for school to reopen to have schools open within the first 100 days. Now, he didn't say to have Old Bridge schools to open within the first 100 days because it's not a situation. A COVID is not a pandemic limited to Old Bridge, where only Old Bridge schools are impacted. If the CDC and the White House administration develops a plan to open schools within the first 100 days, they're talking nationally, and the bigger problem is globally. So within those guidelines, it talks about some of the things that, limit us. We've talked in the past about the quarantine, and I don't foresee, and I hope that based upon our numbers today, I think we're around 12 students positive within the district and 5 teachers positive in the district, that is enough of a base to allow us to come in and not have to deal with some of the quarantine issues that we've had in the past. Now, some of those quarantine issues have been addressed by new CDC guidelines for those people who are vaccinated and those people who have already had COVID. I'll speak to the first part first. Those people have been vaccinated. So if you've been vaccinated and received your second booster, if it's a Moderna or a Pfizer and not the new Johnson & Johnson one coming out, that within 14 days of your second vaccination, then you do not have to quarantine for the next 76 days, because it's 90 days from the second vaccination, but they give you a window of 14 days before they feel it's reaches efficacy, so that within the 76 days, if you come in contact with someone, you do not have to quarantine. Similar, those who have tested positive for COVID, who've had a positive COVID, again, 90 days from the positive test, that they feel you do not have to quarantine. So that is going to help. And as more people become vaccinated, more of our staff becomes vaccinated, when the government entities get on board in New Jersey, and I just want to correct Mr. Weber, in the New York Times article last week was 29 states were already vaccinating their teachers. And my biggest complaint about is that New Jersey was in the top 3 states that were hit initially. State of Washington, state of New York, and the state of New Jersey. So the fact that we are still waiting behind 29 other states have already vaccinated the teachers is ridiculous and irresponsible. So with those measures in mind, so talking about quarantine data and who doesn't have to be quarantined, that's going to be very helpful. I'm not so concerned about quarantine going forward, especially as we move away from the respiratory illness season. What next has to, if everyone has an opinion, but no one wants to do the research. If you look at the new CDC guidelines, the CDC is doubling down on 2 things: wearing your face mask and social distancing. The thing the CDC is saying is they don't want schools to open and then close, because mitigation procedures aren't being followed as the CDC is directing. Those mitigation procedures are masks and social distancing of 6 feet or more. Now, some districts may have the ability to have more people with social distance of 6 feet or more, depending on the size of their classrooms. Most of our classrooms, as Mr. Weber pointed out at one point, are smaller classrooms. We have older schools, and does not allow so much for going away from the 6 feet. Once you get to classrooms where 14, 12 students coming back, you can't have them all come back in for the 4 or 5 days. So in our plans, we have plans to come back for 5 days, but that's going to be dependent on next, based upon an Old Bridge situation, because of the size of our classrooms. Square footage is square footage, no matter where you are, is getting that next hurdle backed off on and released a little bit from the 6 foot distance. Now, some of the people I've talked to in education have stated that the mask mandate is not going to go anywhere for a while. That will be here, maybe to September of next year, but there is an opportunity for the 6 foot distance to go away when the numbers start declining as to where they were the last summer. We don't have to wait for last summer because we didn't get COVID in the United States until March. So we're already ahead of that. So they're thinking maybe by April, May, that 6 foot distance could be addressed and brought down, and that will allow us to bring in more students into classroom more often and hopefully get us to those 4 or 5 days a week.
Thank you, Mr. Cittadino. Okay, so next up we have someone on the phone. 3700. I'm going to ask you to unmute, and also going to ask you to identify yourself. Okay, *6, and if you can please identify yourself.
Yes, hi, good evening. My name is Stephanie Lance. Calling, I have 3 children in the district, and I'm just going to kind of go right off of what Mr. Cittadino had just stated about the reopening plan, and I did read through the requirements from the CDC for reopening and the social distancing. My question on that really is based off of September, because I kind of feel like this year may be a wash at this point, but moving for September and getting everybody back in, if we cannot maintain the 6 feet, if that does not go away, I know that another option is barriers. Is that something that we could look into to be able to get all of the students in, is getting prepared this summer and having those barriers put up in between the desks?
There'd be a lot of hurdles in getting barriers put between every desk in the district. One would start with the fire inspector and the fire marshal of having structures between every desk and every classroom. And again, there's going to be a lot of discussion and litigation about that. I personally think, and I could be wrong, but the masks will be there, but the distancing, as more people are vaccinated and there's more herd immunity, will be less required in the future. But you work in the medical field, and you might.
Yeah, I do hope that is the case, but as of now, they're only looking out 90 days from it. No one has really said anything further than that. So that is why I just would like us to have a plan A in the wonderful world if it does go away, but that if we look into speaking with the fire marshals, speaking with different planners, construction, whatever, whoever done, that's not my field, but coming up with a plan B just in case this vaccine doesn't do what the world is anticipating it doing. We didn't anticipate these numbers, what's happening going on in the world. So if we have that plan A, okay, if it works out, the numbers go down, the vaccines are working, and it maintains working, or plan B, the vaccine starts to dissipate and the virus mutates and we have a different strain as we see out there already. So we have to create another vaccine for that strain, just as we do have to change the flu vaccine, which is going to take time. Can we start to look into a plan B if that does happen, so we're not taken by surprise and say, oh, sorry, we have to shut down? There should be some type of alternative plan ready to go, and getting people involved and planning these just in case scenarios. As we see, nobody planned for the world to shut down. So now we know it's a possibility. What can we do if it happens again?
Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Lance.
Thank you.
Okay, next up we have Jeanette Swart. You can speak, and if you can just let us know where you're from, unmute yourself. Jeanette?
Hi, do you hear me? Okay,
Yes.
My name is Jeanette Swart. I live on Thomas Street, and I just wanted to actually address something that I think it was Ms. Burns. She said something about vaccines not being provided for 16 and 17-year-olds. From what I've researched, if a child 16, 17 does have an immunocompromised system, they are able to receive the Pfizer vaccination, which I've done a lot of research on, and I actually got my first shot this past Saturday. And I just wanted to, again, address that and, make that, bring some accuracy and clarity to that. Number two, I didn't read anything in regards to what happens if there's, for example, when the children go back to school. I mean, obviously some are already back. What happens if there's like one positive case in the class? Are you to quarantine the teacher and the entire class? Are you going to, shut down the entire school? Are you going to shut down the entire district? So I didn't see any plans in regards to the steps that you're going to take if, again, we do get some positive cases in the school district. So I think that maybe, that would actually give us as parents an idea of what to expect. Because again,
Are you still there?
What happened? I think she just went away. Something happened to her.
Well, just if I can respond to that, I'm not sure, kind of with the question. There were plenty of cases last year because I know I heard people complain about me contacting them and making phone calls each night when we had positive cases. And each time there was a voicemail with the details as to how many people were quarantined, who was quarantined. And, in the majority of those situations, the school did not have to be closed. That information sits on the district website, well within the plans too. But if you don't believe our website as the accurate source of information on that, you can go to the New Jersey Department of Health Guidance for Schools. Just type that into Google, New Jersey Department of Health Guidance for Schools. And it tells how to respond, whether there be 2 or more cases in a school, and whether there are 2 more cases that are related, 2 more cases that are unrelated, 2 more cases in the same classroom, 2 more cases regardless of the size of the school, whether it be Grissom School or Old Bridge High School. That is the guidance that is provided to us from the Department of Health. Now, when we have these situations, these cases, we do often communicate with the Middlesex County Department of Health. So it's not like we just make these decisions on our own. We rely upon the experts, but I'm just a little, I don't know, surprised that someone wouldn't know that if we have 1 case, what are we going to do? Close down a school? From, the fall, they were mostly on Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, in the weekends, I was calling every night with number of active cases and the response the district had to do in those situations. But nevertheless, the Department of Health Guidance for Schools, New Jersey Department of Health Guidance for Schools, it gives a very clear indication on all of that.
I mean, I know that the CDC has changed their guidelines on what a close contact is considered at this point. So I'm a teacher and I teach in a district where, if you're not considered a close contact, you've been wearing a mask, right? Because masks work and they're effective in preventing from transmitting the virus and giving it to other people. So the way we do it is that if you are considered a close contact within 6 feet without a mask on, with a child or with somebody who is infected for 15 minutes or more than 15 minutes, then that would be considered a close contact. So are you going to, when cases do inevitably pop up and arise, is that what you're going to follow as far as, asking the people who were around the infected person, are you a close contact or would you consider yourself a close contact? That's my question. Because again, go ahead.
Is that your last question?
Yeah. Well, again, like what I'm asking, I know that you're telling me to go to the Middlesex website and whatever, but again, I know back in the fall, what was happening is that, the entire buildings were being shut down.
That's
when
not true.
There was, Voorhees, where my children go, there wasn't 1 positive case, and all of a sudden, back in November, you guys shut down the entire district. And there weren't any issues at the school where my children are going to.
Okay. Thank you, Ms.
All right.
Swart.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
just to respond to that question, there were numerous cases, positive cases within the district that relied upon us to quarantine staff and students across the district. And that COVID impact chart has been up there since the fall, and it's a living document going through each week, even prior to the district having to close because of not of cases in a school, but the number of cases we had in the district combined that created a staffing concern when we couldn't find enough staff and or substitutes to cover all of our vacancies due to quarantining and those who were infirmed. The second, I'm not directing anyone to go to Middlesex County Department of Health. I'm going to New Jersey Department of Health Guidance for Schools. And we rely upon the Middlesex County when we call. If you're working in a different county, sometimes they have different interpretations, but the interpretation, and I will look into this further, but when you're in the designated as a red zone area, the mask does not mitigate close contact in a red zone area. So even if you have a mask on and you are in a red zone, and you come in close contact with someone in a classroom, you still have to quarantine. And that was a recent determination from the New Jersey Department of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Citadino. Mr. Burns?
Yeah, I was wondering if I could address, since my name was mentioned, if I said that anyone who's immune compromised, could or could not get the vaccine. First of all, I'd like to know when I said that. So if you could email me, that would be great. And I, of course, apologize because I don't know if somebody who is or, immune compromised at any age can or can't get the vaccine. All I know is that 16 and under cannot get the vaccine. So that's it. That's all I got to say.
Thank you. Okay. So next up we have Amber Miller. If you unmute yourself, you can speak.
Hello. Hi.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. Good evening. I'm just coming in late in the meeting, so I apologize if this question was already asked. 2 questions. I was just wondering if the reentry committee has discussed any plans to go from, I know that we just today started the half day for the LLD children, but has there been a plan talked about on a date to start full day programming for our children? And the second question is directed to Dr. Tui. I'd like to discuss ESY, if there's a definite plan, if it's definitely happening, and if he can provide us with dates and timelines.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Miller. Is that it?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I could take the ESY question. Right now, ESY is scheduled for Monday, July 5th through Thursday, August 5th. It would be 3.5 hours, similar to what we have had in the past. It would range, be a little different based on which building you were attending. It's 10 or 15 minutes either way at the beginning of the day or at the end of the day. But the students would have 3.5 hours during the course of the summer days, Monday through Thursday, and again, July 5th through August 5th. Currently, always subject to change.
Thank you.
And I'll just add in that the district has, and if you look in the plan, talks about going to a 5-day. The date is not set yet because we still are reliant upon not only data from the community, but data from the district and CDC guidelines and regulations that allow that to happen.
Thank you, Mr. Citadino. My next 2 have already spoken, but I have no other hands raised. So I'm going, Mel, I'm going to, you can unmute yourself. You have about, within the 5 minutes, you have about 2.5 minutes left. So you can unmute yourself. Mel?
Hello?
And just identify yourself
Hello.
again, please.
Yes,
Mel?
hi, Mel. This is Mel Keogh, yes. Yes, I'm just concerned too because about the guidelines. We do actually, as the board too, have to push, and I'm saying with the CDC because honestly, from day one, the CDC is not reliable. We all know this because in the beginning to the end, the guidelines have changed very drastically. So we all, right, as all of us as a team, because parents, BOE, all of us are all on the board. We are all on the team because we want what's best for our children. We have to change. We have to push for these guidelines to be less restrictive because, as we said, the red zone for people in close contact to be mask to mask, and they're considered in the red zone. I'm sorry. I have to say that is totally inappropriate of a reason for us to quarantine these people, teachers and children. It shouldn't be that way. And if we can change guidelines and move along faster, then maybe we can have a better chance for our children, because it's very frustrating that these guidelines are inappropriate. Okay, because many of us are very, very worried for our children, and I know this. I work actually with COVID patients on a daily basis, and I'm in close contact with them. And I wear a mask, and of course the patients are very sick and ill. But for me, being close contact and me being very well protected, and the guidelines don't supersede what they should be at this point. And I feel like this red zone and these changes can be made to make it better for our children. And we have to ante it up and make it much faster for our children's sake, and not be lax and follow along according to the CDC, because it's very slow moving, and we're getting all impatient, parents, children, all of the above. We are very impatient on moving us forward.
Okay, thank you very much, Mel.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Carr. I just wanted to clarify my point before. The guidance came out from the Department of Health on the masks on January 19th. So it's recent data that wearing a mask in a close contact situation right now in New Jersey does not mitigate or relieve you from quarantine. And that was just out, like I said, on January 19th. As far as, superseding and DOH and CDC guidelines, everyone as an individual has their right to civil protest and whatever they want to do. But as a educational provider that is provided by state and federal funds, we don't have that liberty. We don't have the liberty to say, hey, listen, we're not going to listen to the Department of Health. We're not going to listen to the CDC. We're going to, protest their guidance. That's something that would be, I think would be head us towards litigation and head us towards serious problems. But I get everyone's frustration. I'm frustrated too. I'm frustrated. This would be a lot easier for me if every student was back in school and there was no COVID and things that like this happen. This is no walk in the park for me. And I gain nothing from the students not being in school 5 days a week. Trust me. When the students were in school 5 days a week, majority of you didn't even know my name unless I called to tell you it was snowing. Those who do call me now know my name because of this situation. I gain nothing from it. It'd be a lot easier if we weren't in this situation. But everyone has their views and everyone's entitled to them. But not everyone has to play by the rules that are dictated to public schools and those who lead public schools.
Okay, next up is Dee Branny. I'm going to unmute you, and if you can please just identify yourself.
Hello.
Hi, if you can identify yourself, please.
Yes, my name is Danielle. I'm in Old Bridge.
Can you say your last name, please?
Oh,
Danielle?
I'm sorry. My name's Danielle Branceforte. I'm in Old Bridge.
Okay, and
okay,
you can speak. Go ahead.
Yes, I have 3 sons in the district, and we're going through this with like everyone else for the last year, and this is a nightmare. I have to be honest. This is a nightmare. And, it's stressful, I know, for everybody, but this is a nightmare. And I want to know, once they go back to school, if in the event that there is, the numbers go up, are they going to close the district again? Or are they just going to close that certain school? What's the plan on that? Do they know what they're going to do going forward?
Okay. Do you have any other questions? I'm going to let you say all of your questions first.
Well, yes, because I'm sorry, I'm just a little nervous.
That's okay.
I just, it's just because I feel like we're going around the merry-go-round, and it's frustrating, as a parent seeing your 3 kids struggling. My 12-year-old is suffering. Sorry, I'm crying. He's suffering, he's depressed, and It's just very sad. It's just very sad seeing, your kids go through this. And as a parent, you want to help your kids. And I'm just a little surprised that you board members are parents. And how are you letting this happen? How are you letting this happen? It's very frustrating. It's sad. As parents, you should all be ashamed of yourselves. I'm sorry, you should. That's what I have to say. I can never go to bed at night knowing that there's kids at home banging their heads on computers, okay, crying, screaming, lashing out, saying they want to die. They hate their lives. I got a 7-year-old telling me that he hates his life and he wants to die. That's not right. That's not sitting well with me. And if I knew that, I was on the board and knew that, I would do whatever it took to open the schools and get these kids back in school where they belong, not behind a computer. Okay? I'm sorry for my frustration, but it's just, this has been for a year now, and I can't do this anymore. I don't have the money to send 3 kids to private school. I just don't. I pay all these money in taxes, and that's another thing. All the money we pay in taxes, and this is what we get for our kids to sit behind and devices that don't even work. I'm on my 9th device, my 7-year-old. And then when the device goes down, he gets frustrated. He bangs his head on the desk. I got my 12-year-old upstairs telling me he wants to die. My high schooler that doesn't even want to wake up in the morning. I mean, we have to come to a better resolution. We all have to work together. We're in this together. I've been living in this town for 13 years. I love Old Bridge, but I'm just and it's supposed to be a very good school system here. It always was. But lately, I don't know. I'm sorry for my, I'm just very frustrated, like all the parents. I'm speaking from my heart. And I just think we have to come up with a better plan. These kids need to be in school learning, not behind a computer. You do not learn behind a computer. I tried doing classes behind a computer. I didn't learn nothing. And I know my kids are not learning. So we have to come to a better resolution. Something has to give. If the virus happens here, not shut down the district, maybe shut down that school, quarantine whoever was in contact with the persons that, tested positive for the COVID. We have to just think of another plan and work together and come together, because this is very frustrating. I know for all parents, I'm sure it's frustrating for you board members, but I just don't know how all you go to bed, a few of you. There's a few I know that understand how our parents feel, but I don't know how you go to sleep at and put your head on the pillow, knowing that these kids, the little kids, 7-year-olds saying they want to die. 7-year-olds. It's very frustrating. I'm sorry, I'm finished.
Okay. Thank you, Danielle.
You're welcome. Sorry.
Okay. Next up is Leonardo Marquetta. You can unmute yourself.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Hi. Okay. Before I started, I just wanted to ask a question on who is making all these decisions regarding the school's openings and closings. Is it Dave? Is it the board? Or is it both? The Board of Ed is supposed to be ran like a pyramid: parents, boards, and then the super. Meaning Dave is supposed to answer to you, and then the board answers to the parents. If Dave is handling this all alone and there is no pushback from the board, I have one question. Aren't you embarrassed? If Dave is presenting this to you, the board, and you are approving this with no pushback, aren't you, the board, embarrassed? How can anyone allow this to happen for this long with no pushback? Just like the previous caller stated before, it is very unsettling to me and hundreds of parents outside of my house. How can you walk around this town with your heads held high if you even are fighting for our children? We, the parents, know that there may be 3, maybe even 5 of you that try, and you care about our children, and for that we are gracious and thankful for that. But the rest of you should be embarrassed. We also want to thank the 3 or the 5 members of the board that are more concerned with our children than getting the streets paved in their town. Secondly, I think that there must be a lot of questions regarding the reopening, such as, what have you guys done differently this time? That's not going to make it fail the way that it did the first time within 3 weeks. Like a lot of the callers stated, there's a lot of concern here. And I think issues need to be addressed. I think that what you guys do is you guys dance around a lot of the questions. As you can see here tonight, it's been done again. And if you can hear from these parents how hurt they are to see their kids suffering, and you guys are able to put your head down on a pillow at night. It's unsettling. And there just doesn't seem to be a plan in place. You haven't changed anything from the first time. Guidelines have changed from the CDC, but you guys haven't. You haven't changed. So what's going to happen with this plan that's going to prevent it from failing like the first time? And the answer to that is nothing, because you guys don't have a plan. Thank you for your time. Have a good night.
Thank you. Next up is, it's a phone number 6315. I'm going to allow you to speak, *6. You can unmute yourself and just please identify yourself. 6315.
Hi, hello. My name is Jennifer O'Halloran.
Hi, how are you?
Hi. I just want to know, my son, he's in first grade and he's been struggling, and I have spoke to the principal, and the principal has informed me to, work with the guidance counselor. So now my question is since we have 11 guidance counselors in the district in the elementary schools, are they able to help with the kids? Are they represented on the reopening task force? Like what do they do? Because I having to reach out to the guidance counselor because my son is hysterical crying every morning. He don't want to go on the computer. And, I don't know what else to do. And, the principal tells me to contact the guidance counselor, and I'm not getting much help anywhere. And I have a 7-year-old who used to love to go to school, and now he wants no part of anything. He is not wanting to do anything. And I have had to get a tutor and get all this extra help, and he doesn't want to learn. And I am so upset about this, and I don't understand. Also, I have, I understand that New York is different, but I have my niece who's a principal, and her superintendent is on her every day that she's so stressed out, and he tells her to do everything she can to keep her school open. Make sure you keep 6 feet apart. Make sure no one gets sick. She's actually sick because she has to keep her school open to keep her kids in there. And I'm just not hearing any of this. And it's just upsetting. And every morning I wake up with a knot in my stomach because my son is crying because he don't want to go on the computer.
Okay.
I just want to ask you a question before she hangs up.
Okay, sure.
Did you speak to the guidance counselor, or you're not able to get in touch with the guidance counselor?
Well, I am able to speak to her, but she doesn't, there's nothing really, she keeps saying the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm not sure if the guidance counselors have any, are a part of the task force of the reopening plan, because they're seeing, they're speaking to the kids directly, and they know exactly what the kids are going through. So I would hope that they would be on the task force reopening team in some way, so, they can let everybody know what these kids are going through.
Well, we do have a supervisor of guidance who sits on our ILT as part of the social and emotional component of that team. So I'm not sure if we got your last name. I'll make sure that she reaches out to you.
Jennifer
It's
O'Halloran?
Yes, O'Halloran, yes.
What school?
In Voorhees.
Okay, terrific.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, 8411, you did speak already, but I will unmute you. You have a couple more, 2 more minutes left. So I will unmute you, and just please identify yourself again for us. And maybe say your name a little bit more slowly this time, because I think we might have missed it last time. You can unmute. 8411. No? Oh, there you go.
Can you hear me now?
Hi, yeah, just say your name for us again, please.
Sure. The name's Joe Beggendorf, and I actually referred you all that email that I sent 2 weeks ago. So if you didn't get that, please let me know.
Okay. All right. I think we couldn't really hear your name before.
That's okay. I just had 2 things. First, 2 callers ago or 3 callers ago, I mean, that was absolutely heartbreaking to hear that about her child wanting to kill themselves over not going to school. I mean, I'm sure you've heard stories across the country of kids committing suicide over the situation. Hopefully that's not the case in Old Bridge yet, and God forbid that situation actually does happen. That is all going to be on everybody on this board, and Mr. Cittadino, that blood is going to be on your hands, and that's a shame. And I hope to God that that situation does not happen. It makes my heart break to hear that, and having a son that's in the school, I hope he never has to go through that. My question is to Mr. Cittadino. You had mentioned earlier on this call that when somebody asked about barriers, you said that it's pretty much impossible for us to do barriers because of a fire hazard and a couple of other reasons. But one of the very first calls that we had at the start of the school year, somebody had asked about putting plexiglass up, and you had mentioned that there were barriers in the schools, and it was actually in the welcome videos. So my question is, which one is it? Are there barriers in the schools, or are there not barriers in the schools? Or did I misinterpret what you originally said a few months ago?
Clearly misinterpreted. The question was, were barriers in place? And I stated that barriers are in place where they need to be in place. If you could provide 6 foot of distance, you don't need a barrier. So you can put a barrier on desktops between students who can't be a 6 foot of distance, or from their staff member who can't be in 6 foot of distance. And that may be related to the type of services that they're receiving. But what that caller asked for was that so that we could exceed the 6 foot restriction, to put a barrier between every student in every classroom, which is a totally different thing than putting a plexiglass on top of a desk between a student and a teacher, or a student and another student in a setting where you can't keep 6 foot of distance between them depending on the services that they're receiving.
Okay, so if I misunderstood, I understand that, but how come other districts are able to do this exact thing where they have plexiglass in between a desk and multiple desks in the same classroom?
I don't know. I don't have evidence of that.
Okay. Do you have any other questions, Mr. Bergendorf?
No, that
I
was
do
it. Thank you.
appreciate that people will say, don't give data, don't give scare tactics. And then the first question is, the blood of the hands of every child who dies will be on our heads. And that's not a scare tactic. Or, I could also state that 8 parents have died this year from COVID. 8 parents, more than 12 children don't have their parents this year from COVID. And, in some cases, they don't know how it came into the house. Am I responsible for that too, because schools were open?
Okay, so next up we have 8805. I'm going to unmute you, and if you can please identify yourself. Press *6 to unmute. Go ahead, you can speak now. 8805, just please identify yourself.
Hi, how are you? My name is Allison Donahue.
Donahue?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I don't underestimate the severity of COVID. I'm actually a practitioner at Robert Wood Johnson, and I admit all the COVID patients that come into the hospital. And prior to that, I was admitting patients in the ER. One thing I can say is that I'm not sure where the data is coming from. I don't know if you have different guidelines than hospitals. For instance, yesterday I admitted 5 COVID patients and intubated 1 COVID patient. I am not considered an exposure because I had a mask on. So the data that you're using saying that 2 people with a mask are considered exposed if one person has COVID is not the same data that we're using.
That's clear. You are an emergency worker. If every nurse and every doctor who came across a COVID person had to quarantine for 14 days during the outbreak of COVID, there'd be no one left in the hospitals. My school nurses fall under the same guidance as you, that because they are trained to take precautions and they have the PPE that they wear in those situations, they do not have to quarantine for the 14 days. Teachers do not fall under that, just like supermarket workers don't fall into that, just like anyone else in the service industry or any other profession doesn't fall into that. But healthcare professionals and And paramedics do fall under that, and they do not have to quarantine when wearing a mask and they come in contact with a COVID positive person.
Okay, so is it the issue that the teachers are not having PPE?
They are equipped with masks, but they certainly are not required to wear gowns and shields and everything else that you would in a hospital situation with COVID. They're not emergency workers like you are.
And my other concern is the mental health of the kids. I don't know if maybe they can start doing some kinds of like social emotional learning even in class, because even walking through the ED the past week, we've had at least 12 to 15 suicidal kids, which in 13 years that I've worked there, I have never seen more than 2 to 3. So my concern is the mental health now of these children. I have a first grader, and if she doesn't want to do the related arts classes, I don't force her to do it anymore because the screen time is just, it's becoming too much. My concern is the emotional well-being of these kids now, that I'm seeing it firsthand, that, and they're not all from Old Bridge. I don't know if any are from Old Bridge, but they're all in the same situation that we're in with the remote learning. Is there any way that the school board can possibly come up with a plan other than Wellness Wednesday where they're still not emotionally or socially having any kind of like real contact with their peers? If it's during school time, I know it's a challenge based on social distancing and masks, like a recess that they can go outside in, like something that especially the little ones can address the lack of interaction with their peers.
Okay. Do you have anything else to add? We can address that, but do you have anything else, Allison, or we'll just answer your questions?
No, I just wanted to know too, what is the next step in moving forward with opening the schools up to 3 to 4 days?
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thanks. All right.
I'll just add that there's been professional development and work with the principals and the teachers and related to some of the social emotional expectations we've seen in the classrooms. The guidance counselors and so forth are well aware of that. And we have measures in place to deal with that as students to come back and students to be assessed. The component of what's the plan going in place, I think I've addressed that a few times. If you look at our plan, it talks about moving to 5 days a week, but those would have to be indicative of changes within CDC regulations and guidance as well.
Thank you, Mr. Cittadino. Mary Primiano. You can unmute yourself. Oh, where'd you go? Nope, you left me. Okay, next up is Jay Slade. You can unmute yourself.
Yes, I'm here. Hi.
Okay. And just
I
state your
just have
name,
just
even though I said your name, you can just say your
no
name.
problem. It's Jay Slade.
Okay.
Just a quick recommendation, maybe it's a question. I know the board, Mr. Cittadino, are very quick to compare Old Bridge to maybe a region that's not doing it well, or are quick to find a statistic that we might be doing something better in, which doesn't seem that way. A question to the board, a question to the superintendent. Why don't we just mock or copy? I know through school you're not supposed to copy on the guy next to you, but why don't we mock and copy the success of another district? Mr. Cittadino and I spoke about the private schools, and another person on the board were talking about we don't follow the same guideline as a private school. If they're getting it right, if another district is getting it right, if another state is getting it right, is there any shame in mocking and copying the procedures that they're doing? I mean, I don't know all the details, and I might make it sound simpler than it is, but there's got to be a way to mimic and copy what a successful region is doing. If it's the private school sector who does not have to answer to a higher authority, and they're getting it right with less casualties or instances, follow their guidelines, follow what they're doing. We spoke about 3 feet as opposed to 6 feet. They're not covering themselves. We need to copy who is successful, plain and simple. The excuses are running out. No one's saying you guys don't have passion. You hear the passion around the calls. You have to get it right because it's, I mean, parents are losing it, man. So we have to get it right, and you have to mock and copy who are doing it. I'm not going to repeat myself. Find who's getting it right and do it. Plain and simple. That's all I have. And I'm sorry, and I'd like a response. I don't want my words being just any more questions. I need that to be responded to.
Thank you, Mr. Slade.
I will weigh in that I had a nice conversation, Mr. Slade. I hope you took away some things from it that were eye-opening and positive. But the question about mocking, or I think imitating or using some of the ideas or concepts being used in other districts, we do that as well. There is a weekly meeting with all of the superintendents via Zoom, in which we talk about what's going well in one district, what's not going well in another district. And some of the initiatives that we've had have been imitated in other districts, and some that we have shared and used in our district. Again, there's everybody has a lot of suggestions. Someone sent me pictures from a private school saying, look at how they have the distance and everything. Well, any carpenter will tell you that the floor tiles in a school are 12 inches. And I get sent a picture from a private school. The kids are socially distant because they have red duct tape on the floor, but the red duct tape is three floor tiles apart. That's not 6 feet. So even if the desks are even moved from that, the maximum was 5 feet. And then in another classroom was 4. So if you're just going to move it just to put equal amount of space between every student to have as many students in the classroom as you can, you're not following the parameters of the CDC, which we have to follow, in the Department of Health, which we have to follow, which comes out through the Road Back program, Road Back plan that the Department of Health gives us. I'm sorry, the Department of Education. So the Department of Health and the CDC are part of the Road Back plan that is dictated to us by the Department of Education, which private schools don't have to do. But in some areas, we have changed and modified our plans based upon what other districts are doing, and they've done the same for us. A lot of people don't like Wisdom Wednesday. Some people do not like Wellness Wednesdays, but now it's being used in other districts.
Thank you, Mr. Cedino. Mary Permiano, I see that you are back. Let's try this again. Just again, when you unmute yourself, just state your name.
Hi, good evening.
Hi.
Mary Permiano.
Hi.
I just wanted to first start off by just giving acknowledgement to my son. He's in the 2nd grade at Voorhees. His teacher, Miss Jillian Patty, has been a godsend, and she's absolutely wonderful. And she puts 100% effort in every single day. And I just wanted to kind of acknowledge her and on a positive note. And then as far as the plan back. So Mr. Citadino, you just said that you have no evidence of the plexiglass in other districts. And so, but then you just said that you meet with other superintendents, like over the county or the state, whatever it is. And so I emailed you on October 5th and asked you, because Marlborough, Manalapan, Freehold, Howell, East Brunswick, they all started to use this plexiglass to get the students in earlier, more often, and offer more days, because plexiglass, if used, doesn't require the 6 feet, if I understand that correctly. And so I think a couple meetings ago, you actually kind of mocked the plexiglass. Oh, everybody wants to talk about this plexiglass. What is everybody's obsession with this plexiglass? So from what I understand is what you just said about adding more days and getting to 4 or 5 days is pretty much we're not getting there unless the CDC takes down their recommendations. And again, just these guidelines are recommendations. So basically, my question to you is, why was plexiglass, when I asked you in October, which I never got a response for, why wouldn't we have prepared? I mean, this is going on now 12 months. 12 months you guys have had the time and, you know, energy to focus on getting our kids back. 2 days is not enough. And once again, like I said last week, and I've been calling in since July, it's an embarrassment. I'm embarrassed to say I'm in Old Bridge because so many other towns are getting so much more from their school districts, their superintendents, and their task force, their board of education. And it doesn't seem like we can move forward to 4 or perhaps 5 days if this 6 feet CDC regulation doesn't change. So I guess my question is, why, when we talked, I mean, for months in the summer, when I asked you in October, why wouldn't we have invested? I mean, this plexiglass can get all the students back if we do plexiglass, masks, and, you know, who knows when this 6 feet distance, you know, regulation is going to. What about in September? Are you going to tell us in September, oh, well, the CDC still has a 6 feet apart regulation? I mean, this is where it's just a failure of time, of energy. And, you know, you just want to say, oh, I have no evidence of that. You know other schools are using plexiglass. You know other schools were in 4, and public schools were in 4 days a week in September or October. You know what's going on. So to me, this is where it's a failure. There has been no planning and no preparation. You're just waiting for these guidelines to be lifted. And they may not be lifted for a long time. They're talking about the world is going to take 7 years for everyone to get fully vaccinated. What are we doing here? Why are we sitting around idle thinking, wow, if this regulation is lifted, we have to think of our children, their education, their mental health. This is your job. This is your job. Do it. I asked for your resignation in October when I saw all these other districts doing everything they can to get their students back. And you're going to sit here tonight and tell me, I know we're not going back more than 2 days a week. If you're telling me the only way we could get back more days a week is if the CDC lifts the regulation. Maybe it will happen, but maybe it won't. And we can't just keep waiting around on maybes. You need to do the work. My husband and I, we have been in Old Bridge. We bought our first home here. We built our family here. We brought our children here, and we love our community. But we are leaving. We are thinking about leaving because of you and this district. Why should I sit here in Old Bridge when a mile away, Marlboro is getting 4 days, and Manalapan kindergartners have been getting 5 days, and Freehold is in 5 days. Yeah, I know. My 5 minutes. My 5 minutes are up. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Good night.
All right, so just
okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
A brief response. It is incorrect that plexiglass can be used in spare of social distancing of 6 feet because they work separately. They don't work together in the same way. There's nothing better than social distancing. But when you can't have 6 feet of distance, you may use plexiglass in certain situations, in certain services. What was said about East Brunswick using plexiglass so students can come back 4 days a week is incorrect. There's not plexiglass between every student in East Brunswick to have students come back 4 days a week. Again, I don't know what is going on in Marlboro and Manalapan. I don't meet with the people from Marlboro and Manalapan, but there's not one school district in Middlesex County, public school district, that has plexiglass between every student to offset the 6 foot distance. There is plexiglass used in certain classrooms, providing certain services where it's impractical to use a 6 foot social distance, depending on the service that we're provided. I'll say it 10 times, I'll say it 20 times. That's the facts. You can try to twist it into anything you want to twist it into, but there is no practical measure to put between 7,900 students, plexiglass between every one of them in a district of our size.
Thank you, Mr. Citadino. Sarah Dine, you can unmute yourself and just identify yourself again because sometimes it's not the same name that's listed. Okay, you can speak.
Okay, so I'm just calling in. A lot of my questions and comments were addressed, but I do have a daughter who's in second grade in Walter Schirra, and so far she's been lucky to have a great teacher, Miss Carvel. She's been extremely patient with her and most of the kids. She knows she has two of her own kids, so I guess she knows what it's like. But there are other teachers that actually are reprimanding other kids for not staying on the computer the whole time. And I feel like that's adding more frustration to the kids already. And they should understand. And they're not just saying, sit, you have to sit. They're saying like, why are you not sitting down? You need to pay attention. I just don't understand how that's helping the children. My daughter had her grades posted for the second marking period. And again, she's getting default grades. She has been going to an after school or out of school program, Kumon. She's in a very she's in a higher grade, let's say for math and reading. But when she gets these default grades, because the teachers cannot, they can't assess their skills, their writing skills, their handwriting skills, because they're not in class. How is that helping the teachers? I mean, sorry, the teachers and the parents and the students. The students are getting no motivation because they're getting just an A or satisfactory for their grades. She takes so much pride because she's doing so well in Kumon, but she tells me, Mommy, I'm not going to school because this is not a real school. And here I am watching her struggle because she loves school. She doesn't even want to be on the computer. She's having behavioral issues. She's crying every day, and it breaks my heart. I know she's not the only child. I know there are worse kids dealing with this, and then I'm going back to Mr. Jay Slade's comments about, going back, like Mr. Citadino keeps saying, I don't know what's going on in other schools. I don't know what's going on in other towns, but there's a school right across the street from me. It's a Catholic school. They've been open 5 days, 1 block away from me, actually. They've been open almost, 6-7 months and 5 days. I've known a lot of people that went there from public schools, and I know some neighbors that are actually working there as teachers. They're not having any issues. However, they're making it work. I don't see anybody, like, what are they doing right? They're in Old Bridge. They're literally a block away from me. And instead of saying, I don't know what's going on in those districts, I don't know what's going on in those schools, maybe find out. Go somewhere. Pick up the phone. You don't have to go there. Pick up the phone and say, we'd like to see how you're how you're working out and how you're having school open for 5 days a week. And they're not doing it just for money. They're not doing it just for money, just so they can pack the students in, because I don't think they would want to have that on their hands. So that's something that you guys need to, you've had almost a year to do this, and there's still going back 2 days, and not only full day, but going back 9 to 12 what is that? That's a joke. Kids go to school, by the time they settle, by the time they even have 1 session or 2 sessions of class, school's over. It's not only hard for kids, but parents can't go full time to work. It's unbelievable.
This is Sarah's husband. I just want to say one thing, because I heard, I don't know what his name is. I think he's the superintendent. He said he doesn't know what's going on in other districts or other towns. Well, maybe you should find out, because We're not in this alone. We can all learn from each other. And by saying you don't know what's going on here, you don't know what's going on there, you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot.
It's kind of your job to do that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I don't believe Mr. Cittadino said that. I believe that he did say that he speaks with all the different schools in Middlesex County. So, Mr. Cittadino, is there anything you'd like to say or no?
I have no evidence as to what other districts, if you come in and say, well, this district over there and that one over there. I don't know what they're doing. I don't even know they're 5 days a week, according to what you're saying. Again, I deal with the Middlesex County Board of Health, and I deal with our regulations here with my county superintendent. What they allow them to do in Monmouth County with the Monmouth County may be different. I don't know. I could have the county superintendent look into it. I could look into it, but what we have to deal with here in Middlesex County is the county superintendent and the regulations that they give us with the county Board of Health. I can tell you that we are following the CDC guidelines. Our desks are 6 feet apart. They are measured, and we put our students in there according to that measurement, according to those regulations. If they have larger size classrooms that's another parameter that I talked about. If they have larger size classrooms that allow them to have more people, that could be another venue. But I have no information of any district putting plexiglass, as you're indicating, as you're suggesting, between every student and every school. Even the ones that I talked about were parochial schools in this neighborhood. They did not have plexiglass in every school, and the ones pictures that I saw were not 6 feet apart.
Okay. All right. Okay, so we do have one other hand, but Mel, you've already spoken, I believe, for 5 full minutes, which is what the allotted time is, Mr. Porton, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so seeing no other hands raised, I am going to close the hearing of the residents for now. So thank you very much. And we are going to move on to, let me see if I can get that up. Okay. Okay. Any old business?
Yes. As was authorized at the last meeting, I went on a tour with Mrs. DeCaro, Teresa Burns, and Matt Sulikowski, and we visited about 2 weeks after the meeting, given the weather conditions and advertising for the meetings. We focused primarily on the elementary schools, since those children seem to be having the most difficulty with the remote learning. And I deliberately picked the oldest schools with the smallest classes, along with looking at some schools that had some bigger classrooms. Right now, in looking at those classrooms and talking to some of the principals, there are probably, again, I think you've got 45% roughly of the kids who at the elementary school who've opted. That's between the two different variables, of 48 and a 43% for the 3 to 5 year olds, 5th graders rather. We looked at the classrooms, and in my opinion, I'm not speaking for the committee, I'm only speaking as one person who was on the visitation tour. It appears that we can fit 12, 14 kids in there, maybe as much as 75% of 20 kids, 15 kids. Now, of course, right now, the demand is only for an average class of 20 for 9 kids. And right now, those 9 or 10 or 11 kids are split between 2 days on Monday, Tuesday, 2 days on Thursday, Friday, as opposed to all of them being in for 4 days, 9 kids or 10 kids on 4 days a week. That certainly would be a big improvement from what we have. As far as plexiglass goes, it's my understanding that the CDC and Mr. Parton can clarify for me if I misspeak. Um, They are guidelines. Is that correct, Chris? They are not law?
The CDC informs the Department of Health and Department of Ed, but yes, these are not statutes. We are looking at guideline documents from February 11th from the CDC and January 19th from the Department of Health.
And they have adjusted wiggle room in there when you, with the 6 feet is the goal they want you to strive for. But when not possible, they required masks. And then when still not possible, they required barriers of some kind. I believe that's the CDC regulation, not regulation, but recommendations. So right now at this point in the short term, it seems that the kids who are currently going on the 2 days a week plan could be combined into at least 4 days a week. And at that point, that certainly would help those kids. And if the other parents want to come in, I think that's a problem that we'd have to address when we get there. But right now, I did observe that there were plexiglass in special situations, but in the general education classes, there was none that I saw on any of those desks indicating that, that was an option for those classes. And our class sizes currently are averaging 20 students per class. We do have bigger classes of 24 or so, which should be a little more difficult to handle. But those are just things that have to be worked on. That's one man's opinion.
Thank you, Mr. Weber. I forgot I was muted. Any other old business, or would anyone like to?
Mr. Weber, I agree with you 100%. And tonight, the meeting went very well, but as a board member, I'm tired of being beat up by the public saying that we make all the decisions. Mr. Parton, would you please clarify who makes the final decision when the schools are open and what's going on over here, please?
Yeah, we can.
It's not the board. It's not the board. I have no input. I have nothing to do with the task force. I was never invited. Would you please clarify this?
Yes, you ready?
Go ahead.
This goes back to the July meeting. I'm sorry, the July DOE document that we discussed at the August meeting. And this was a big issue for you as board members and for the administration. But the fact is that the Department of Health and the Department of Education promulgated guidelines and the road back document. And they directed the superintendent of every district in this state, every public, non-parochial, non-private, every public school district in this state to implement a road back program that had come from Trenton. And it is a responsibility of the administration, not of the board. And it is true, Mr. Solikowski and Mr. Weber, to your points, the board did not have a veto or have a decision to make there because this is an administrative action at the direction of the state that fell on Mr. Cittadino's shoulders. So yes, this is not board action. This is administrative action by operation of the state.
Thank you, Mr. Parton. When a person came on tonight and said, how can you people sleep at night? I had nothing to do with this, okay? This is an administrative decision. Thank you, Mr. Parton.
Okay. Would anyone else, well, we're doing old business. Would anyone else like to respond or speak on what Mr. Weber said or what Mr. Solikowski said, or we'll go on to new business. And if there's no new business, we can all just, go ahead, Mr. Giordano.
Yeah. I think the people of Old Bridge and I would agree that we don't want to be ruled and influenced by unelected cabals such as the CDC. And for months, I've been calling out what they've been trying to do to us and how they're trying to drag this out and keep the people from exercising their rights and their choices on what they want to do with their education and with their lives. So at a certain point, we have to realize that the people have the real power in this country and they should have the choice on what they want to do, and their voices should be heard, and the actions and policies should be brought by them and not these people. Thank you.
I'd also like to just, I do want to clarify that Mr. Cittadino and administration did discuss all of this with us. Every board member was given updates on what the task force did discuss, and he did also do a straw poll of the board. So the board did have input, and I know for a fact, I remember one at the board meeting that when this was brought up, Mr. Cittadino did say that he would take the board's recommendation under advisement when this happened. So, the board was definitely, there was a straw poll on all of this.
And I disagreed with it. Thank you.
Ms. Salas Foster?
Yes,
Unmute.
thanks.
Mhm.
Okay, thanks. Just a few things on this. There was a question about, is there a pushback and is there discussion with Mr. Cittadino? Yes, I think you can hear it amongst the board members. I can also tell you the task force spends hours at a meeting, 4 hours discussing the pros, the cons, the issues, what's unique to Old Bridge, what are other people doing. So to say that we do not look at the options and what we're doing, unfortunately, that is not true. There is much discussion that goes on that. And we understand the frustrations of people. We absolutely do. But I do take the recommendations from CDC and the Department of Health because I'm not a medical professional. These are what these people train for. This is their careers. They have the knowledge. So I am going to rely on them because I don't have that background. I can tell you that everything I've done on this board, the hardest decisions that may not have been popular, I will hold my head up high. Do I sleep at night well? Not always. There's nothing that is easy about this. It is heartbreaking. So while I will stand by what actions I take, it is difficult. So it's not always easy to sleep at night. The one thing I want to bring up that is unique to us, because when we look at these situations, we do need to look at the uniqueness. And one of those, and as we were saying, the reason we did have to go remote is the positivity rates. And we are much higher than our neighbors. So when we look at East Brunswick, their numbers, I think I just wrote them down. Right now they have 2,602 positive cases, while Old Bridge has 5,529. So we have double the positive cases in our community. That impacts the schools. Marlborough and Manalapan. Marlborough, they're around the same as East Brunswick in the 2000s. So that is some of the variable that goes into it. So when we say, how can they do it? There are those variables that go into it. I would also reiterate, we have a plan. I know not everyone agrees with it, but there is a plan. There are the plan of a phase 3 and a 4 and a 5. That is our goal. So we are just getting back. This week we're having our self-contained classes. Next week, the K through 2, and then in 2 more weeks, everyone. We have said if the things continue on the downward trend as the positive cases are, as well as our teachers get vaccinated, these are multi-layered thing. It's not just one thing. But as those happen, those are the factors that improve our ability to increase the number of days and the number of hours. And that is the goal that we all have. And that is the goal that we've been working towards. Again, that data, those presentations, and that is out on our website. So we are adjusting when we're able. So as these CDC, as the quarantine becomes less stringent, that impacts it. As we hope social distancing impacts, that will impact it. That's everyone's goal, is to get us back full. And I think that is the path we will stay on. Again, I know It is not easy. We have our Wellness Wednesdays. I know there's many programs out there that people are taking advantage of. And, you know, I'm committed to staying on that path. I am proud of the work I've done on this and everything I've done for this community. So I think we will continue on that path. And I thank everybody who has helped us, the teachers, our paras, the people delivering the lunches, our guidance counselors and school counselors who are really, I think, doing yeoman's work, our administration, everyone that is working together. This is not an ideal situation, but I am proud of the people of this district that we will continue on that path. So, and I, you know what, I would just like to again thank Danny Rita, who I think is an inspiration of somebody who is keeping us optimistic as we go through this. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ellis Foster. Very well said. Thank you. Would anyone else like to comment? Ms. Callie and then Mrs. Burns.
Had so many speakers today. I apologize. I don't remember who it was who spoke and thought that it was Mrs. Burns who was referring to 16 to 18-year-olds. That was actually me. And I apologize if what I said wasn't clear, because sometimes even board members get nervous when they're speaking. So I'm going to try it again. What I meant to say was, I know and I've seen and I have heard from parents of 16 to 18-year-olds that while they, and that would be our older students, but while they are eligible for one of the vaccines, I think it's the Moderna vaccine, they are having difficulty procuring appointments, as are many people who are looking to get vaccinated. I didn't mean to say that they're not eligible. The rest of our students, the vast majority, are under the age of 16, and they are not eligible for any vaccine because the FDA has not approved a vaccine for those people. So I apologize if what I said didn't come out the way I wanted it to. And I am echoing, I'm not going to be redundant, but echoing a lot of what Mrs. Ellis Foster said. You know, we are trying. The one thing that I do want to say that she did not touch upon is I have read some articles by mental health professionals that while remote learning is difficult, and to those parents, I mean, you know, it's heartbreaking to hear what some of these parents and these children are going through. And I just hope that to the parents that are saying their kids, you know, are saying these things, you know, like, I don't even want to repeat some of the things, but that you are reaching out to, you know, your guidance counselors or to other mental health professionals. And I'm sure that our guidance counselors are there to help. And if for some reason you have difficulty getting in touch with them, then please get in touch with administration because we don't want to see any child get to the breaking point. But back to what I was saying, I have, in addition to mental health professionals agreeing with it being difficult for children, particularly young children, to have remote learning, they said that it would be more detrimental to open up the schools full blown and then have to close again. The back and forth would be very detrimental, more detrimental, in addition to what they're already going through. So taking it a little slowly and using the plan that we've had in place for months is something that I agree with. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Callie. Would any other board member, oh, Mrs. Burns, did you? Yep, go ahead.
Thanks. So I'm going to, I don't know if I want to use the word address, but some things stood out to me while the public was talking. The first thing is for Mr. Parton, are we allowed to go call other schools to see what they're doing, to look at best practices?
The administration can articulate with other school districts. The board members certainly cannot do that, but I think Mr. Cittadino said that he has a weekly superintendent's roundtable where they discuss best practices and successful ideas. And yes, that's certainly part of the process.
I think Mrs. Burns is frozen. Yeah, I think you're frozen, Teresa. Let's see.
Thank you. And so, Mrs. Foster. Oh, am I frozen? Can you hear me?
I can. Yeah,
can you hear
you're
me?
breaking up. You're breaking up, but we can hear you now. Try again.
Better now?
Yeah, try that.
Oh, can you hear me? Okay, so Mrs. Foster had said before about variables. So that's something too that we need to look at, like, why aren't we doing what Connecticut or New York is doing, or Alaska is doing, because New Jersey is so unique. And then we bring it even closer. Why is Old Bridge doing something and maybe not Newark or Somerset? So when we look at data, of course, we want to use best practices. That's always my favorite word. But why would we use those best practices, or what best practices would fit Old Bridge? And then there was a caller who was extremely passionate. And I just noticed that she kept saying, "I'm sorry." And I just wanted to reiterate that you don't ever have to be sorry or apologize for advocating for your children, even if we don't agree. We just need to keep an open dialogue. And last, I want to end with a note from Play Unify and how they have partnered with SEPTA's We Are One campaign. So far, they have raised over $2,000, which is pure profit. Very excited for them to be able to spend that money for our children. And there are 4 weeks left for the sales for the t-shirts. And the Play Unify has been reaching out to all of the clubs. So if maybe you haven't heard anything, don't be afraid to reach out to them, because it's a big district. And I know that they'll be, looking to partner with more people. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. I wasn't sure if you
Madam
were frozen.
President?
Yes, Mr. Dunn.
Yeah, I just want to give a couple of points. I think that we have to move beyond the past and we have to move forward. And, we have debated as a board numerous times about what we should do and what we should recommend, et cetera, et cetera. And I can remember when we had the straw poll that's been referenced here a few times this evening by other board members, the straw poll was 5-4. So there was a split board to agree or disagree with the recommendations. So, we were conflicted and we did have heated discussions. So, the board was in conflict. But the facts are that we need to move on. I think that at this point, me seeing the county numbers, probably the same as Mr. Cittadino seeing, the numbers are dropping significantly now. And I've said it from day one that once the flu and cold season surpasses and people start getting vaccinated, the numbers were going to drop drastically by the end of February. And but based upon data I saw, we're in February now and things are really looking very positive. And the forecast for March is even better. And they're saying that we can be possibly at numbers from July. And if that's the case, then, there's a new set of data that's going to be out there, which is going to give Dave and the administration and the reopening committee, more food for thought. And hopefully, based upon those numbers, we can say, hey, you know what, we can go back, 4 days a week. And me being the fire chief here in Old Bridge, I see the numbers and I can tell you they're definitely going downward. And if they keep on going that direction, I think that, the decisions can be made, provided that we get our staffs vaccinated. I know that, Mr. Cittadino has pushed for that. I think that there's going to be a resolution on tonight's agenda that the board is going to solicit or make it known to the governor that, vaccinations for teachers must be a given. And if we can look to the future, I think that, if we can plan accordingly, and I'm sure Dave is doing it along with the reopening committee, that, we could possibly be back in 4 days in a short time. But I just wanted to remind everyone that the board was conflicted. We did have a straw poll, and it was 5-4 to support the findings of the administration and the reopening. And hopefully that we can look past, what transpired months ago and look forward to getting the schools reopened to a position where, we can get as much instructional time for our students as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dunn. Would anyone else like to speak before we move to adjourn? Mr. Parton, we don't have an executive session, do we, tonight?
No, we do not.
Okay, good. Okay.
Mr. Dunn, very well spoken. Thank you for your input. I'm on the same page with you.
Thank you, Mr. Solikowski. All right. So at this point, I would just like to say, again, just to gently reiterate some of the things that were said. We have all been working very hard. We really do understand. Yes, we are parents, and we really do understand the frustrations of all of the parents. We all have children, and, my children are older. So no, I don't have children that are going through what the parents are going through now. And it does break my heart. And I know how frustrating it is. And we are doing our best, but we're also trying to do our best while being responsible. I commend Mr. Cittadino, and I commend the administration for doing the best that they can. Our reentry task force, as Ms. Dallas Foster mentioned, hours and hours in those meetings, going back and forth with a bunch of different stakeholders, hours and hours. So I do commend our administration and Mr. Cittadino in particular. This is a lot of weight on his shoulders, and he is truly doing the best that he can. And I know that, and hopefully the rest of this board knows that. There is nobody wants to open the schools more, I don't think, than Mr. Cittadino. But I think on the good news we have to think is that we started opening today. I think we need to embrace that. We started opening today. Next week, we're going to have more students in. March 1st, all of the students are going to be back. Okay, I know it's only 2 days a week, and I know that's extremely frustrating for everyone. But as soon as the new guidelines come in, and yes, we have to follow these guidelines. And as soon as that all comes in, as soon as we can loosen up our guidelines, we will do it, but we're going to do it responsibly. And, I really feel for the parents that called in. I know, some of you might not believe that, but we do feel for everyone out there. So I will not belabor that point. And I will just, I think at this point, I think everybody has spoken that wanted to speak. So seeing as we don't have any executive session, I guess I will at this point ask for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll move it.
Dunn will second.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Good night, everyone. At 10:15, the meeting is adjourned.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night, everyone. Stay safe. Stay safe.